This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan.
Driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Parker, and welcome to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin, and today's guest is one of our very own from right here in New Baltimore, Michigan. And I have to tell you, we are very fortunate because the state of Michigan has some absolutely rock-solid blues, rock, R&B, country. You name it, we've got it. We have gifted musicians on every level of the music genre list. So as I was saying, our guest today is one of those hard-working, talented musicians who proudly calls Michigan their home. He's a singer and songwriter and an American rock blues musician. If you're a fan of Sirius XM's B.B. King's Bluesville, you might even catch some cuts from his 2024 album, Big Leg Woman there. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guest, Michigan Mick. It's great to have you on Time Signatures. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Do you want to be called J. Ervin or Ervin, Jim Ervin? What's your preference?
Irv is fine, man.
Irv, you got it. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you. So let's dig in here because we got a lot to talk about. I'd like you to talk about your earliest memories of music, Mick.
My earliest memories of music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my family wasn't really musically inclined. I had a couple of aunts that played a little piano. My mom, she sang in the church choir. And my dad would brag that he played the radio really well.
Okay.
So, anyway, though, I'm sorry?
No. I was just going to say, did you have any favorite songs or any bands, the ones that you just had to hear over and over again when you were a kid?
The way that kind of worked is that, my grandmother and my uncle lived with us. I grew up in a small rural area, a small farmhouse. And my uncle was about 7.5 years older than me. So I would hear the top 40, like Everly Brothers and,
Sure.
Smokey Robinson, Nat King Cole, some of the early Motown, things like that. And I liked that. I liked it a lot. But
all right, Mick, talk about your baptism into the blues, man. Where did that start for you?
That started on a Sunday night. And I was playing up in the attic, and we had this old Zenith radio that would get UHF and VHF and Coast Guard and CB and, AM and FM. And it was a hot summer night. I think I was maybe about 7 years old. And I'm playing with this. It's making all those spooky sci-fi noises. And then I hear this gospel. This woman singing this phenomenal gospel. And it gives me goosebumps right now. Later on, I find out it's Mahalia Jackson. And then I'm hearing, Preaching Blues by Sunhouse and the, what do they call it? Golden Gate Jubilee Choir, and singing all these gospel songs. So that's where I really got my influence in with the music, with the blues and stuff. And of course, later on in the week, I'm playing around with it, trying to find that again. Well, I don't find the gospel, but I started hearing Lowell Fulson, Jimmy Reed, Sonny Terry, guys like that. And I was just hooked. And I'm listening to this stuff, really getting into it. But and I'd hear some BB King or Albert King, but the one that got me was when I heard Freddie King. His guitar work just clinched it for me. So That was it. Even though my family really wasn't very musically inclined, wasn't into the blues, I heard that and I was hooked.
Now, at what point in your life did you decide that a career in music was going to be in the cards for you?
Once, really, but that fell through badly.
Okay.
I got a guitar. Begged my dad to get me a guitar, and so he buys me this guitar at Kmart that's not much more than a shoebox with a stick on it. It was brutal. It was bad. But one of the guys that was in Cub Scouts, he taught kids how to play guitar. So he came over to the house. He's showing me some stuff. Next week, he comes over and he brings this beautiful arch-top orchestral Gibson guitar with heavy, flat-wound jazz strings. I mean, it was way better than the thing I was trying to play on.
Sure.
He said, "Here, use that. Didn't have a case. He said, take it around, put it in a pillowcase, you'll be fine. I mean, that guitar would be like 10 grand now if you had that thing. And I'm like 8.5, 9 years old, dragging that thing around all over, in a pillowcase, I could get a gunny sack and stick it in that,
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. And I started playing. And the area I grew up in was, a lot of wedding standards, country and Western. And as I'm getting better, then one day I tell him about, I start showing him a little boogie woogie stuff that I'm trying to copy from what I'm hearing on the radio. He goes, oh. So he pulls out some other stuff, and he happened to be a closet bluesman himself. And his big fan was Freddie King, his big favorite. And so that was the magic. That was the magic. So, like I said, it was an area that really didn't listen to what they called race music back then. But he was into it. I was into it. We were kind of playing those little things back and forth and so on. And so when songs, when Cream comes out and Hendrix comes out in 66 and 67, all the kids are trying to play that. And I'm like, well, how'd you get it so fast? Well, I was listening to their root. Instead of building from them, I was building from what they were building on. So I had a faster lead anyway, or a longer lead on those guys. So playing those types of things. So then that was what really got it going. And started playing from there. And my best friend, he started playing. We got a high school band. His sister was a flight attendant. And she would get all these records that you couldn't get here in the States. Kind of like a reverse thing. You hear about the Brits, getting music from the States, that they wouldn't get back and forth. So we got all this other stuff. So I'm listening to Savoy Brown, 10 Years After, Atomic Rooster, all before any of that stuff. Everybody else is listening to Cream and Hendrix and stuff, which is great. But then I'm listening to other stuff too and hearing other things like that. John McLaughlin, all that kind of stuff. So that was where I really got into it for a good deal. And playing a lot of electric, banging away. Had a drummer that was a Keith Moon fan. So, we're thinking we got it, And we're playing, we had a gig before Christmas, and I got mad at my friend. So I didn't talk to him over the whole Christmas week. So then over the Christmas period, I got rid of all my electric stuff. He was like, what'd you do? So I got an acoustic. And so a week or two later, he gets rid of his. He gets an acoustic. The bass player, he goes, what are you guys doing? And we tell him. And the drummer quits. So we start getting into even more avant-garde type stuff, keeping some of the blues in there, but we were making blues, jazz, fusion type stuff like that. We were really getting into a lot of that stuff. And by the time I was 18, well, we were offered a contract right after we graduated high school, the three of us, with a company called Aquarian 00 Productions out of LA. And it was a subsidiary of the Hearst Corporation. And the other two guys, they were afraid to sign. I turned 18 and said, what are they going to do, sue me? So I signed, I'm thinking, like, this is great. So we go in the studio, we're recording, doing all sorts of stuff. And it was a 1-year contract with optional 3-year renewal. Year comes up. Goes, yeah, we want to keep you? Yeah, I'll sign up. We want you. We start talking to Columbia Records. About 3-4 months later, we're over in Southfield at a studio. The sheriff comes in, the FBI comes in, arrests my manager, arrests his entourage or his associate.
Oh, my goodness.
He embezzled like $200,000 in 1974.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so everything went in the can, in the litigation. I'm under contract. Nobody will touch me.
Oh.
And plus disco's coming out. So they don't want to hear, guys doing John McLaughlin, acoustic, jazz, fusion. Oh, and the bass player that we had, unfortunately, he passed away about 10 years ago. But he became Reba McEntire's touring bass player for like 17 years.
Oh, my goodness.
So talking about musicians here in Michigan, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no kidding.
I've been around the world. Well, I've been playing Mexico, throughout the States, Europe. And before I had my nerve injury in my arm about 4 years ago, I was good as some, better than most. And I'd say I'm kind of middle of the road here in Southeast Michigan. So that gives you a clue as to how good everybody is here in
Yeah, oh
comparison to other places around the world.
yeah. There's a lot of big talent in the Metro Detroit area. I've been exposed to Johnny Rhodes, and
Hmm. Yep.
I don't dare go down the road because I'm going to miss somebody, and then I'm going to be upset. And I have so much respect for the many musicians in the state. Um, I better not start listing names here, but
No,
I want to
sure.
turn the page because you've headed down this road. You had some nerve injury a few years ago,
Yep.
but we got to talk about the 2024 album Big Leg Woman.
Okay.
Um, I got a few questions, but I want to start
Sure.
with this is actually your first album, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes.
So you went at 1974, you said?
That would
When
be 70, yeah, December 74 when the whole thing went down,
so
when the
50
when the
years,
arrest.
50 years has passed and you're finally now releasing an album for the first time. What took you so long? I'm just curious.
Okay. Well, like I said, I was under contract,
Sure.
and I just thought the disco stuff was coming out, and I wasn't into it. So
Okay.
I went to college and I became an engineer. And over the course of my career as an engineer, uh, it was extremely well. I retired in 2022 from engineering, and I was the global lead engineer for automotive pedestrian protection safety systems globally for the company I worked for the world, Asia, Pacific, North and South America, Europe.
Wow.
Anything that went through the design and the development and the interface with any of the customers, whether it was GM, Ford, Chery, BMW, Mercedes, came across my desk first before the release of the design, what the targets were, what we're going to do, along with management, program managers who run the budget. But from the technical aspect, that's where I finally ended up as an engineer on that. I was for 30 plus years, a specialist in automotive safety systems, seatbelts,
Hmm.
airbags, that type of thing.
So for
So
50 years, you let your dream sit.
I didn't really let it sit because about 6, 8 years after I got out of college, they
Okay.
start sending me different places. But I always took my guitar with me. I'd have a guitar that I could put in a gig bag, and I'd fly somewhere. I'd put it in the overhead bin, and I could sit in my hotel room getting drunk, or I could look for a place to go sit in and jam, and that's what I did. And I
Wow.
jammed all over Monterrey, Mexico, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, Indianapolis, Columbus, wherever they sent me over in Europe. In the 1990s, uh, I was sent over to work for the company for about a year in Germany, and I was part of their advanced development team. I was the only American engineer on that group. You had the Germans and the Swedes and the Brits and the Spanish. I was the only one there. But this was north of Hamburg, just about 10 miles north of Hamburg. And if your listeners are up on your Beatles history, where did the Beatles do all their warm up before they hit the big time? In Hamburg, Germany,
I'll be
on the
damned.
Reeperbahn, which is the entertainment and red light district.
Okay. Wow.
And, and so when I was there, I would go there. Now, I would not partake of any of the red light stuff, but the entertainment, the bars, the clubs, even one of the bars there, the top 10 club, which that the Beatles played at, was still there when I was there. So I don't know if the same stage, but the same building, same location. I would play
And
there.
and the blues at that time was pretty much coming into another resurgence, was it not?
Yes, it was. It wasn't so much here in the States. Well, it was to some degree, but over
But
in
more so
Germany,
when you yeah.
yes, very much so. Yeah, this would be like 97 to 99. Yes, that became really, really big. Um, I wound up sitting in with an R&B band that had a horn section, a couple of girl singers, a couple of lead singers, guitar, bass, drums, keys, and I sat in with them, and they wanted me to join their band. I said, well, I got a wife and kids. I make way more money than you guys do, but I appreciate it. But what they did do was they would invite me to their higher end gigs in Paris or Amsterdam, Gothenburg, London, Havant, England, stuff like that. And I had the frequent flyer miles, so they'd send me a cassette. I practiced some new tunes. We booked there, and I didn't even worry about getting paid. They just put my name up there. And that's how I got my stage name. The lead singer there started calling me Michigan Mick because my name's Michael, and everybody there is Michael, and they're called Mick. And you can't throw a stone without hitting a Mick. I mean, we're lousy. We're all over the place. Doesn't matter. England, Germany, Ireland. You say Mick, and there's 15 hands that go up at once, So they started calling me Michigan Mick, so they would bill me. The name of the band was called Groover with special guest Michigan Mick. And they would love it because every time they billed it with special guest Michigan Mick, they said they'd fill the house because everybody thought, oh, we got this Yank that's coming over from the States, playing with this band. They didn't know who I was, but it was just the hype of it. So it was fun.
Very cool.
I did that for about a year or so, and we played this place called the Boulevard down in Havant, England. And who walks in? Alvin Lee. After the show, he and I sat there and jammed for all night. The bartender closed up the place. Me and him, a couple other people are playing all night long. He's drawing drafts off and having a blast. It was fun. So,
wow. Those are the kind of stories I love to hear, man. It's so exciting to hear that kind of stuff. Now, I want to return to the album.
Sure.
I happen to know that you worked with Motor City Josh at the Sound Shop on this project.
Yes,
and
I did.
For those watching and listening, Josh is also a very well-known musician. As I said, Motor City Josh is what he goes by, of Motor City Josh and the Big Three. And I need to get this guy in this program soon because I keep interviewing musicians that have worked with him, and I owe him that much. So talk about the relationship that you forged with Josh in the Sound Shop.
Okay. Well, actually, Josh and I forged our relationship back in the early 1990s.
Okay.
During the 1980s, I had some blues-worthy hard times, stuff that I really don't want to even talk about, pretty depressing.
Sure.
And I put the guitar down for a while. Well, my one boy got me back into playing, so I go out there and start getting my chops back. And there was this little dumpy bar in Mount Clemens called Chrissy's. It's now called Three Blind Mice.
Okay.
And they would have open jams on Thursday nights. So I would go there, and that's where I met Josh with Curtis Sumner and some other musicians. And Josh and I hit it off really well. This is like about 1992. And we've been good friends since then. And so even though I may not see him for a year or two or three, we get together instantly. It's the same type of camaraderie that as if I had seen him yesterday.
Yep.
And so with the album, I decided I'd make an album, and I gave him a holler and said, how about if I record that? Help me get some studio musicians. I gave him the raw tracks, worked out the arrangements, got the musicians in, and recorded the album.
Wow. Now, I have to ask you,
Sure.
You get the album done, you get it produced, you send it off.
Yep.
The first time you heard one of your songs on Sirius XM's Bluesville, how did that feel, man? And does it ever get old?
No, it doesn't get old. Not at all. And I don't know if I could even say it, but because my thought was, get the F out of here. Are you kidding me? Really? That's when I didn't even hear it. I was told about it. I said, really? And so when I finally heard it, I had to, tell my wife, tell my kids, tell my brothers, tell everybody, my friends. Oh yeah, look, and post it all over Facebook at the same time too. It's like, it's one of those magic moments like, oh my gosh, that's great.
And it's not just a hit or miss, is it?
No, it's rolling along. It gets about 2.5, 3 spins a day, and it's been running like that since December 15th or 18th, something like that.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, I'm pleased that it is, though. I'm grateful for that.
Now, I've been told that you have another local musician on this album.
Mhm.
You also allowed her to record one of your songs on her new album.
Mhm. Yes.
First of all,
Yes.
talk about who that is and how did that come about?
Okay, her name is Sunny Blue, and I
Mhm.
met her and Nick Coco about 2.5 years ago. We met at the Detroit Blues Society International Blues competition for like 2024 or something like that. And neither of us made it with the DBS. I actually wound up representing the West Michigan Blues Society and to go down to Memphis, and she became part of the Women in the Blues program. So we were down there in Memphis at the same time, and we
Okay.
just built up a good camaraderie on it. So I write this song called Forevermore, and how I write these songs is, it's because I got a glass of bourbon and a cigar, and I'm in the garage, when it's hot in summer, and I'm just noodling away, and I come up with this kind of interesting Latin kind of groove, write the music, and I'm thinking this is kind of almost like a feminine type of lyric. I'm thinking it needs like a woman's touch to add something in there. So I
Hmm.
gave her a holler. I said, "Hey, you want to do some duet on this?" And she says, "Yeah." So we put it out there, and the Detroit Blues Society, when they did their CD review earlier this January, they really, really dug that song. They think that's another one that needs to go on Bluesville ASAP.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. And then the song that she recorded of yours, I'd like to hear the story on that too.
Um,
She modified it, didn't she?
yes, yeah, and I'm glad she. I think they should. I think people should. They shouldn't try to copy me or whatever like that. They should put their own spin to it. Um, I went over to their place, Nick and Kelly's place, and we were talking about music. And Nick's telling me about, because I'm planning on doing the album. This is even before I lay down any tracks. I said, well, you got to take care of your label. You got to take care of your publishing and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I look at the stuff. I go, I'm a smart man, but not smart enough. So I had to get an attorney to get that stuff going. So created my own label, created my own publishing. Uh, that lawyer kind of fell down for a while, but things finally got straightened out last month or so. But that was like 6, 7 months in the making, trying to get this stuff squared up. So anyway, that's how I started. They said we need some more songs for our. We have a record label that wants us to present more songs, and we need something. So I showed them Forevermore. I showed them Regret Blues. Uh, showed them a couple other songs, and they decided to cover Regret Blues, call it Regretful Blues, and put their spin on it, which I think was
Hmm.
great.
And how did that feel? Seeing that come to fruition on another album like that.
I was humbled. I was really humbled to think that somebody would think that one of the songs that I wrote was worth their time to record. I was I was very humbled, very grateful for that because those are the types of things that I aspired to when I was 18, 19 years old.
Sure. Yeah.
So 50 years later, I was like, wow. And that's and like I said, I was very humbled by that.
Now, Mick, aside from Bluesville, aside from
Hmm.
DBS,
Yep.
how has Big Leg Woman been received thus far? Any awards or nominations for awards have come down your way
Well,
yet?
yeah, it's up for the Michigan Music Association Awards. That's, I guess, it's being held this Sunday. Best Blues Album and the song Big Leg Woman Best Blues Song. So it's up there along with Sunny Blue and the Moons and Lexi Blue and some other great blues musicians. So there's a whole bunch of us there that are up there. But yeah, I got nominated and I was surprised because I didn't even know it was out there. And somebody threw my CD in the. They probably meant to throw it in the trash, and they actually threw it over there in the award bin instead. They go, "Oh, okay, we'll put this one there too."
Well, now I have to ask you the follow-up question. Has
Sure.
the release of this album made you hungry for more? As in any plans in the near future for another album?
Yes, I'd like to do one more studio and at least one live, something like
Okay.
that. compilation of the two studio albums. There's a song on the album called Serving My 99, which
Yes.
a lot of people like, but they also find it a little dark, the lyrics and so on. It's kind of, when they talk about it, go, I really like that song, but the lyrics are kind of dark. And I go, I suppose so. And that song came up as a last minute kind of thing. It was like getting ready to do the last mix on the album. I had 10 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just listening to stuff. And I wind up writing this song like 2 days before I go in to review the final mix. We do the mix, everything's all good. And I asked Josh, I said, hey, let me just put this down. So I've got a nice recorded copy. He goes, sure. So run the mic, whammo. I run it through the first time down. He listened to it and goes, why don't you put it on the album? Okay. Does a little mix. I think from the time we recorded, the time it was mixed, couldn't have been half hour. So we put that song on there. And, excuse me, and it's been getting a lot of local attention. People they really like it. But like I said, they find it a bit difficult because of the darker lyrics in this song,
Yep.
But one of the things that I've been doing because of it is when I go to some of the jams and I know the musicians and I can show them what the chord progressions are. Like last week I did it at the Cadu Cafe, and this had to be the telltale for me to have to go back and redo this song, but with a band. So I said, okay, let's do the first verse just like this. So I did just like the record, just me and the guitar, first verse. I said at the start of the second verse, I want the whole band to punch in. Well, they did. I said, do 2 verses, couple leads, 2 more verses, wrap it up. Everybody there, man, woman, patrons, wait staff, bartender, when the electric kicked in, their heads started to go like this with every rhythm, and it didn't stop until the song was done. When you get like 40, 50 people that are moving at the same time, at the same pulse that the song is playing,
Mm-hmm.
that tells you you've hit something. You've hit something there. They may not be listening to the lyrics so much, but they're digging on the groove big time. So I was just told Josh the other day, I said, I'm going to have to come back in and redo this, call it like a take 2 or a slight return or something like that. Keep the solo guitar, and then also add a band in there too. So that's where I was there earlier tonight talking with the bass player about this. So
Very cool.
so that's looking to come along. And I've got a couple other songs that I've written. So we'll let this album play out, go for the year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if it, when it's spent its last little bit of energy, put out a second one then, and pick up from there.
I just watching Greg Nagy released an album here not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he's already working on another one, which I'm excited about because he shared a little bit about it. But it's really kind of cool when you see the hunger develop and you see the following, and then people want more and they want some of this and they want some of that. It's got to be a real balancing act for you as a musician, isn't it?
It is, because that's one of the things I was at the studio about today is that like I said, I hired studio musicians. Now they're local guys that I've known. They've played with other bands, played with Josh Ford and so on. Mm-hmm. But I've not been in with their bands. And I've tried to find musicians that, to maybe come up with a band, but nothing's ever really clicked with me. I didn't feel this, I thought I'd rather just pay the guys, work on the arrangements. I guess because I approach it in it's kind of like as I did with an engineer. It's you got to be precise. You got to have a clear direction of what you want, what you balance, what you create, and the focal points in this stuff. And the vast majority of musicians that come up, they got some good technique, they play, but it's kind of scattered and unfocused. And then when you say, well, I want this, I want that, well, they kind of get that, George Harrison attitude, well, I'll play anything you want, Paul, type of thing, from the movie. It's like, okay, that's not going to work either. So when I work with these guys, they're like, oh yeah, I hear what you're talking about. I understand what you want. I said, I want this movement here. I want that movement there. Like with the song Forevermore, it's got this build up, this break that creates a build up. And in the CD review, they were the person doing the reviewing loved it, but at first couldn't even understand what was happening. But they said it worked every time. They couldn't even musically define it. And yes, it does kind of break from the blues in those little sections there. But actually, if you look at it, it goes into the Latin jazz kind of movement.
Okay.
And so it's kind of comped some of that in there to go back into the Santana style Latin blues groove, but to create a little tension, create a build-up so that the song does not become so predictable and repetitious type of thing.
Sure.
And so those are things that a lot of musicians, the bands, they'll go out there, they'll play like the record, play this, play that, but they don't grasp the steps forward. They're looking at the stuff in the back. So that's what I said with these guys here. I just talked with them today. I said, I would like, what would we have to do to maybe get together? And they said, what is it, a bar or a concert? I said, yeah, this would actually be a concert. Because about a month ago, I was offered, if I had a band ready, to warm up for a very, very, very big blues guy at the Royal Oak Music Theater this April. And we'll keep
nice.
That. If you want to go fish around to who's coming, but okay. I'll leave it at that. Because some people get a little anxious and testy about touching, mentioning names and whatnot, if you're not part of the whole thing. But I said, I told them, I said, I don't have a band, so I can't support it. They said, well, that's too bad, but let us know. A booking agent who has some big name booking people that they do around here in Michigan. So, so that's like I said, I have to get these things going. Things are picking up. People want to hear me perform the album, perform the songs on the CD, and so that's kind of cool. I've never really, I know that's what you've got to do. When I've been with bands before, you play the songs that you like, you think that's going to work in the bar or the club, wherever you're playing. But now they're actually, people want to hear my stuff. And that's That's cool. And that requires a lot more focused work to get it right, because it's got to sound as exciting and entertaining as what they hear on the CD. I don't want any sloppy holes. And they go, oh my gosh, he sounded good because of the magic of the studio, and he's crap on stage.
You definitely don't want to hear that.
No.
So, Mick, do you have any plans for some touring or any festival appearances for this year?
No, I don't have anything planned, like I said, because I didn't have a band to be able to throw my hat in, and all these things are booked easily 6 months into advance, and only by the contacts that I had made down in Memphis earlier this year was I given a call about that gig come up in April. And that would have been a one-off, nothing special. And if that would have went well, then maybe some other places and so on. But this would be kind of like, if I get things going, this would be like the pre-warm-up year. So next year would be the big year if I was playing festivals, any regional tours, things like that.
Okay. Well, here's the most important question of the day, Mick. Where can folks go to find out more about Michigan Mick? Maybe buy some copies of the album, merch if you have it available, or maybe even to book you for a gig.
They can book me for a gig. They can check me up on Facebook. Another thing that I'm learning that I'm woefully deficient in a whole bunch of things, such as I don't have a website, which I'm getting that worked up. Merchandise. Some people have said, hey, we get some merchandise and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I got to get some gigs first. So, I haven't initiated any merchandise or anything like that. Though I do think the cover of the album would be pretty good. I think a lot of people, even without my name, they'd like that picture because I like that picture.
Well, and I have to be honest with you. I've listened to your album a few times through, and I've enjoyed it. I mean, there's definitely some good material there. And you do have copies of the album available.
Yes.
And also available for streaming, I would assume, as well.
Yes, it's on all Amazon, Apple, Spotify. It's on all the stream, Pandora. It's everywhere. Fortunately, last week I got heads up that Radio Caroline, the pirate radio station in the UK, will be playing my album starting April.
Nice.
Yes, so, and they are an AM station which has about 4 times the range as FM. So they're not only getting the UK, but they're getting the whole western coast of Europe.
Wow.
So yeah, so that gets into their stream come April. And that will go through 6 to 8 weeks.
Michigan Mick, it has indeed been a pleasure, sir. I want to thank you very much for taking time to talk to me today. Greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Had a blast. Thank you.
All right. Well, before we close this episode, I want to talk to you about the Blues Foundation in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
The Blues Foundation preserves blues heritage, celebrates blues recording and performance, expands worldwide awareness of the blues, and ensures the future of the uniquely American art form. The Blues Foundation is responsible for the International Blues Challenge, held each year on Beale Street, the annual Blues Music Awards, which is coming up here shortly, and the Blues Hall of Fame, celebrating 45 years, and they are just getting started. To make a tax-deductible donation today, please go to blues.org and then click the donation button on the top right and make your donation. Thank you so much for your consideration. And that wraps up this edition of Time Signatures. Once again, my thanks to our guest, Michigan Mick, but also to you, for without you, none of this would be possible. Jim Ervin reminding you, keeping the blues alive is everyone's responsibility, but preserving the history of the blues, one story at a time, that's my mission. Until next time, so long, everybody.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.